Welcome to the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity Podcast. Join Stewart Heath for down-to-earth conversations with top professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders who have a story to tell. Let's get rolling.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity Podcast. I am your host, Stewart Heath, founder and CEO of Harvard Grace Capital. And very excited today that our guest is Jack Shade of Infinite CXO. We've just been having a great chat, getting to know each other a little bit. He hails from the Charlotte, North Carolina area in general. And Jack, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Stuart. It's been a pleasure to get to know you already, and I look forward to our conversation today.
Yeah. So, Jack, many people are noticing, and we're a young podcast, that I'm only inviting guests, so let's just say are of a certain age, and people who've had real experiences, and nothing against people who've had early success in their career, but most wisdom and experience comes from long years and battles that we've all survived, and gray hair or loss of hair. So when you think back on your career, is there a moment that you would call the game changer, which led you on the path? Maybe there's multiple game changers, but led you on the path that you're here today as head of CXO, Infinite CXO.
Yeah, thank you, Stuart. That one's always an easy one for me. My very first trainer. So I got into sales 40 years ago, and the gentleman that was training me introduced me to a cassette series called See You at the Top by Zig Ziglar.
Mm-hmm.
And this individual trained me to the best of his ability, even though, and I'm jumping forward in the story from him, this was more than a year later, he told me that he didn't believe I was going to make it 2 weeks. I had no sales background. I was an introvert coming out of school and was just very motivated to be able to tackle the opportunity that was in front of me. And what I learned is that none of us as human beings have a crystal ball. We don't know who's going to do what or how that's going to work out. That we do our best to help people in the way that we can help them at that point in time. And then his name's Dennis Krause. Dennis did that for me. And now as my life's gone on and I've been able to coach or lead more than 1,000 different individuals in different roles over time, I always look back at that. And then, of course, all the core components of what Zig Ziglar is, and help enough other people get what they want and you'll get what you want in life. It has been a core thing that I've now had as a backdrop for everything I do for 40 years.
So my question would be, did he do that because he really believed you weren't going to make it, or was he just challenging you?
So the timing of when he told me he didn't think I was going to make it wasn't until I became his boss. So it was a legitimate, I really didn't think you were going to make it. He'd never told me that while he was training me and developing me, et cetera.
Right.
But I became the district manager of that organization in originally from Toledo, Ohio, and that's where that was. So he didn't tell me that until after I got promoted, and that's when he shared the rest of the story, so to speak.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So are y'all still in communication today?
Lost track of him a long time ago. Dennis was probably 25 to 30 years my senior at that point in time. So yeah, couldn't find him on LinkedIn, all those things. Right. From the time his generations and even social media haven't been able to find him, but I've always been very grateful and know that wherever he might be in this world or in the beyond, that I'm forever grateful for the difference he made in my life and a lot of others. Right, the pay it forward kind of component of the impact he's had because of what he did for me back in that time frame.
I think if we're honest, almost all of us have somebody that we can point to about that age. Maybe it's high school, college, who really pushed us to to do the right thing or go the right path, or just challenged us. So that's great. So you've had a pretty good career. You just mentioned the number 40 years. Frankly, I wouldn't have guessed that long, but uh, was there a bump in the road, something unexpected, and that came along that you can share about? And how did you handle it? It could be a big bump, little bump,
Yeah, it's I believe the quote is if you're not failing, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
Failing forward has become a core component of a lot of the discussion that we have with organizations. As human beings, we're never going to be perfect. And even with our seasoned veterans that are being added within organizations, we know that often one of the things that we might help them with is just failing forward faster than what they did before. Really where a pivot, a substantial pivot happened for me is I was blessed to have a fantastic career with Aflac. And of course, anybody would know the brand with the duck. I just happened to be Aflac Jack for about a dozen years, uh, and was handpicked by another mentor in my life to become an internal coach, where I was traveling the country and providing guidance to market directors around the country within Aflac. My goal within that organization was to become a market director, knew all the the details and the numbers and had the experience and everything else to become a market director. Went through the process multiple times where every indication was I was the next candidate up. And I don't know if it was just that they liked the way I was performing in the role that I was in, or whatever the other details were behind it. Um, I was the support 2A market director. I actually moved into Columbus, Ohio area. We grew one of the top performing teams. Rob and I were actually traveling the country, providing training and coaching to other market directors in the country. And then we were brought into another interview process. And when we walked out, we didn't believe that it was really a full interview, that they probably had already identified who was going to be hired for the role. That happened within a short period of time. And for me, it opened other doors. And so, yeah, I always thought my journey was to be that I was going to retire with Aflac and I'd be there for a long time. And it's a great company and great culture, and they make a huge difference in the marketplace. Uh, love their commercials still to today, and still have policies in place with them. But the pivot allowed me to move into a digital marketing company called Rev Local. And that's where I met my current business partner, Aaron Boggs. Aaron was one of the original founders of Rev Local, and he was the president. And between him and Michael Hawk and Mark Hawk, they trusted me to take all the expertise that I'd learned in my lifetime in that sales role. And what I recognized was all the things we wanted to do at Aflac and just couldn't because of the size of the company and some of the layers that you had to go through. We were able to influence within Rev Local, and in a 3-year time frame had right around 450, 500% growth in 3 years. And that put me on the path to being able to go on and now help a lot of other companies do that instead of just working for one at a time.
Cool. Cool. So you went from Rev Local to starting Infinite CXO. Is that right?
So in between there, when I left Rev Local, and this is again, it's the sign of a fantastic culture of an organization. Right, we had grown it to the point where I was less engaged in the day-to-day with the sales team, and we have Diana's one of the most fantastic people you could ever meet in any space, and she was the perfect sales leader for that organization, and it was a right time for me. I was in more executive stuff every day, and as I exited that, it was through conversation that I had had with one of the founders, Michael, and then 2 of the other executives that asked me about whether I'd ever considered being in consulting. So the journey toward Infinite CXO started when I left RevLocal. I started consulting in industries that I had zero experience in. And to back up, even when I joined RevLocal, I was in my early 50s. I'm joining a digital marketing company and I didn't even have a Facebook page. And in less than 30 days, I'm up in front of business owners making presentations with Google and Facebook and Yelp, and realized that my background and experience could be applied in a lot of different industries.
Yeah.
So worked with a few manufacturing firms with great success, an architecture firm with great success, and then started working with a company called SalesStar that's another fantastic organization. They're a business development and coaching company based in New Zealand, helped bring them here to the United States. They became a franchise in the US, and I really didn't want to be a president of a franchise and saw the opportunity to influence more than simply business development. And that's where we spurred into Infinite CXO. And so we launched Infinite CXO a little bit more than a year ago. And we love the fact that we can help influence a business across the entire landscape and every discipline of what a business would need to be able to accelerate what they want to do to succeed.
That's great. Well, I love the name. And as you and I were talking before, I'm a former fractional executive as well. So I know where you're coming from. And I just never really had the guts to try to build the whole firm. So I went in a different path. So um, this is my favorite and least favorite question, because I am a lifelong learner. I love learning and obtaining new information, but sometimes I don't like learning things that, you know, software is always the example. Say QuickBooks just decided to change everything. Why do I need to relearn this again? So, what is your own discipline? I'm sure at this point in your career, it's a discipline. How do you attack learning new things that you need to learn? And is it a passion for you? Do you enjoy it? Just talk about that a little bit.
I love the question, and wouldn't assume that you had a chance to see this. So one of our core values is that we have boundless curiosity. And even as we're vetting people who are coming on board within our team, we know that we're going to have extremely experienced people. They're seasoned veterans. They've been in multiple executive roles over their careers. However, we know that when we meet a new client, that we're not going to know that business owner, their people, their business, or their industry any better than they do. We have to have boundless curiosity. We have to be willing to learn what they're doing, and the world's moving so fast. So for us, we push each other. Now, as human beings, we're just like everybody else. I always go back to this. I heard one time, oh, that idea sounds fantastic. It's going to be great. It's going to make a huge difference for us. I love what you're saying. You go try it first.
That's right.
Right. So human nature is such that we don't always want to evolve to that, but it goes back to what we said earlier about failing forward and failing fast, is that we try to unlock in each other that it's okay to look bad in front of each other or even in front of a client. And I think there's so much of what's been created in the world that people have become afraid of failure, that when you unlock the ability to recognize the wins out of every loss, you always have a win out of any failure or challenge with a client or whatever it is. And that allows you to at least emotionally overcome what the fear might be. And that allows you to unlock the knowledge base moving forward. So yeah, for me, learning AI and the different tools and going into different technologies. You mentioned QuickBooks. My wife's a financial person, so when Quicken changes things, she hates it as well. I hear all those same things. But ours is to first think of, so why? Why did they change it? What do you think the benefit would be? So how do I learn that to then learn whatever that benefit is? And
Right.
I'm never going to be perfect at it, but that's kind of our mindset internally, is to have the personal humility to understand we're never going to be perfect. So how do we continue to evolve?
Jack, let's shift gears for a moment. I want to talk about personal investing. And as we said before, no numbers.
Sure.
I'm just always very interested to hear how someone with your experiences and success, how where do you place your own personal funds? Are you into crypto? Are you buying art? Are you stocks and bonds? What do y'all like to do, and why?
Just like anything else in life, this too evolves.
Yeah.
And so even back prior to Aflac, I was a full fee-based financial advisor. So I have a little bit of a different probably point of view than some people might. But for a long time, it was that you did asset allocation and you were primarily in whether it's your 401k or IRAs or different investment portfolios. And then do you balance it between having stocks, mutual funds, annuities, properly funded universal life, and for me, that's one that I utilize probably more than most would do in a wise way. As our life has evolved, we've gotten into real estate more. We've got a few different properties, and sometimes depending on the market, might flip those. Just got through selling one of the properties that we had for a right timing, right opportunity scenario, and then with where we are positioned in our business is we have probably five, almost one a day, maybe five or so. So on a month, maybe 20 different businesses that are in startup phase that are approaching us. So we start to become aware of opportunities there. So paying attention to that. And then the other piece of what fits of where we are in the marketplace and what's happening is depending on where you see the data, I've seen a number as high as 85%. I've seen other numbers in the 60 to 70% range. But when you talk about what percentages of small to medium businesses in the US are owned by baby boomers, it's one of those numbers. So let's say it's 2/3 of the businesses are owned by baby boomers. That means that you're going to have a significant number of small businesses that are going to change hands over the next 5 to 7 years. And we see our ability to come alongside of some of those owners who haven't had a way forward to be able to sell, to understand what the true valuation of their business is, how to exit it, how to be able to partner along with them to make sure that we create the legacy that they wanted, and then we can even be involved in the business acquisition. So crypto, I had a buddy of mine call me a couple of years ago and say, if you haven't heard of this and you have any available cash, put your money in that and go see what's going to happen with that. And fortunately, I listened to him. So that was my first thing into crypto. And yeah, we just try to pay attention to different opportunities.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten into the collecting art or cars like one of the guys I know well does a fantastic job with that. But that's kind of been my journey on where we are with investments and trying to help
that's fascinating. I mean, I thought it would have been funny when I was talking about crypto being risky, but y'all are actually looking at small business investments. So, and having done that myself too, but no, but you're coming at it from an informed point of view. I really like it. I have heard that that opportunity at two different conferences in October, just in the last 30 days. So a lot of people are starting to look at the turnover of businesses from baby boomers, and it's a real thing. I mean, they're either going to shut them down or they're going to sell them, and there's going to be change. So,
well, and on top of it is, as in my experience in starting to work with them, is a lot of these family-run businesses that were started out of somebody's garage 35 years ago. Their leadership team is all like them. So they're all senior people that are close to retirement. And that's kind of where our model of having executives across each of the disciplines kind of comes in, is that we can help offboard somebody who wants to be in retirement and then work in an interim role as we help onboard somebody else, or maybe they have somebody in the organization that they believe could be promoted to COO, for example, but they've never been a COO, so we can shadow them And we can be that mentor for 90 or 180 days to help them so that they're not failing miserably. They're just failing forward.
Yeah.
We go back to that. And now it's, we can play that role in multiple companies at a time. And now you're even blending, we speak to being a kind of a house of wisdom, right? You start to blend
Yeah.
experiences.
That's actually brilliant. Y'all are in a perfect position to, run them in transition while you go find the new management team, and you end up with a piece of the pie too. It's actually brilliant. I love it. So,
Well, thank you. Yeah. And what we believe post-pandemic is some of these companies they're going to feel like a significant portion of their leadership can be fractional forever, right?
yeah.
Not all their C-suite can, but there might be 2 or 3 roles in some of these smaller manufacturing or healthcare or tech companies, whatever it might be, AEC, that yeah, they could have fractional CFO and a fractional CMO and never hire another full-time person into that role as long as they've got a couple of other key roles on the ground.
Yeah. All right. Last question.
Yes, sir.
Jack, if you're mentoring someone, or if anybody would just would want to follow in your footsteps, what one piece of advice would you give them?
So part of the performance coaching that we discuss is recognize whether you need to be in fix-it mode or you can help empower somebody else to accomplish what they can accomplish. So what we recognize for a lot of people that are trying to lead others is that if you were the participant coming to me and asking me for advice, I'm going to immediately tell you how to do it my way without considering what you already understand, what you don't understand, and how you might be able to accomplish it in a different way than I have. So if I can stay out of fix-it mode and say, Stewart, how do you think you would do this? What do you think you could do well? Where do you think your gaps would be? If you think that's the gap, what do you think your options are? And we find out that most people could probably get themselves 80 or 90% of the way there. They just didn't have the confidence yet. So we try to help anybody that's in that leadership role stay out of fix-it mode. And I've heard people as parents even start to talk to their kids this way a little bit, is what can the kids figure out on how to do it their way? Now, there's a time where you've got to obviously be the final decision and moving forward. But as human beings, we're all different enough that most leaders struggle to help develop anybody who's not exactly like them. And when you have that mindset of, can I stay out of fix-it mode and can I help empower somebody else from their point of view, that changes. It changes so much, but one of the other things that changes is often somebody feels like they have to have the right way, especially when you're in leadership. My way's got to be the right way. And as opposed to, as long as our team wins, it doesn't matter whose idea it was.
Yeah, I certainly struggle with that. My way's the best way in my own organization for sure. But having been a solopreneur for many years and done most every job myself, I know this way works.
Sure.
And I really am open to other people's ideas. Just jobs got to get done. So anyway, Jack Shade, thank you so much for taking time. You are the CEO of a growing organization. I know you're very busy. It means a lot that you take time out and spend it here with us, and I'm sure it will benefit our viewers. And if any of our viewers want to reach out to you, and for any reason, maybe they need CXO services, how would they do that?
I mean, there's many ways. Anybody can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's always very easy. My email address is my first initial J, last name Shade, at infinitecxo.com. They can go to our website. We put a lot of our content out there, even our coaching information. It's out on our website. We want people to be able to benefit from it. And I'm more than happy to connect with anybody as we go through this process of helping each other in whatever way we can.
Thank you once again for being our guest today. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed this episode of the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity podcast. Tune back in next time for another one where we will have another fabulous guest. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Stewart.
Thanks for tuning in to the Growth, Grace, and Prosperity podcast. If you'd like to be a guest, visit growthgraceprosperity.com/guest. We'd love to hear your story.